Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, Filipinos and other nationalities. Welcome to the program agenda. Today is April 18 and it's a Tuesday. And thank you for joining us this morning here on Agenda. I am broadcasting live from Barrio Capitolio, Pasig in the Philippines. And we thank our subscribers of Cignal TV and of course those who follow us on Facebook and YouTube who watch One News and the program. Maraming salamat po. Let us express gratitude to the Lord for it is a sunny day outside and it was quite warm yesterday. So I do hope you have a lot of activities planned today, but be mindful of the heat. Talaga naman po, medyo umiinit na, consistent with the time of the year. Okay, and let's get on with the program. Thank you to PLDT, Mr. Marco Borlongan for PLDT Home Fiber Optic Internet. They are partners in the broadcast and they have been consistently giving us what we need in terms of strength and technology to keep us on air. Today, let's get on with our daily starter. It's especially a significant daily starter for me, ladies and gentlemen, and I share it with many of you who find yourself limited. Kumbaga, konti lang ang meron kayo. To make it more exact, people will always say, you can't be a farmer unless you have a lot of land, and you can't have a nice house unless you have a big house, etc., etc., etc. Sabi nga ni Yul Brynner in The King and I. But I have always stepped up, stood up to the challenge, and believed in God's grace, God's favor. And I believe that even when you have a little, only a little, or you have limited stuff, you can really make do. And I saw this from the poet T.S. Eliot. Gab, if you would. And there you go. It is not necessarily those land which are the most fertile or most favored in climate that seems to me the happiest, but those in which a long struggle of adaptation between man and his environment has brought out the best qualities of both. Ulitin ko, please don't remove it. It is not necessarily those land which are the most fertile or most favored in climate that seems to me the happiest, but those in which a long struggle of adaptation between man and his environment has brought out the best qualities of both. Okay, so even in the Bible, I believe it was the story of Abraham when he asked his nephew to choose, okay? Nag-aaway yung mga shepherds nila. And he said, sige, maghiwalay na lang tayo ng pastulan. Let us go different ways. You choose. And Lot chose the better land. And Abraham was left with the land that was rocky, hilly, etc. And yet, Abraham prospered. I have seen that in my own life. People have said you can't raise a lot of good chickens because you don't have a lot of land. Well, not to be proud, but with God's grace, God's wisdom, and God's blessing, I seem to have more chickens than some of my friends who have more land. You can, sabi nga ng isang kaibigan, you can say all you want about my toys, but I have the toys, you don't. Yun yung sabi ni Serge Nagyat. Okay, and good morning to Wilson Ganipan. Good morning to Doc Carlo Ilagan. One more win. Thank you very much. Let's now go to the front page of the Philippine Star. April 18, 2023, and the headline goes, PNP chief says no cover-up in 6.7 billion drug haul case. Okay, the Philippine National Police is adamant, pinanindigan, that there was definitely no cover-up in the arrest of dismissed Police Master Sergeant Rodolfo Mayo last year in connection with the 900 kilograms of shabu valued at 6.7 billion seized in October. Okay, last week, Interior and Local Government Secretary Benhar Abalos claimed that there was a massive cover-up in the arrest of Mayo and advised 10 ranking police officials to go on leave or face suspension. Okay? At a press briefing yesterday, PNP Chief General Rodolfo Azorin said there is no way he would have covered up for Mayo. He also vouched for the integrity of the two highest-ranking officials who were forced to go on leave. The former PNP Deputy Chief of Operations and the head of the Drug Enforcement Group. Ayan. Okay, however, Abalos stood firm on his accusations and asked why it was taking so long for PNP to file charges against 49 policemen implicated in the alleged pilferage of 42 kilos from the 900 kilos of seized shabu. Okay. Actually po, ang tanong, bakit hindi nag-courtesy resignation yung Chief PNP? Diba? Sabi nga nila, leadership by example. Okay. Anyway, apparently, PNP Chief General Azorin is retiring, if I'm not mistaken, in 7 days yata, if I understood this press conference. So, well, I guess it all becomes smooth and academic. At the top of the front page, we have the header, G7 ministers seek unity on China. Top diplomats from the group of 7 wealthy democracies are vowing a tough stance on China's increasing threats to Taiwan and on North Korea's unchecked tests of long-range missiles while building momentum on the way to boost support for Ukraine and punish Russia for its invasion. The G7's top diplomats began talks in Japan yesterday, looking to project a unified message on concerns about China after controversial remarks by French President Emmanuel Macron. Okay, so ayan po, you have to pay attention to that because that will most likely stir things up even more. Speaking of which, the Manila Economic Cooperation Office ba yun? Manila Economic and Cultural Office, MECO, said that Filipinos in Taiwan are well protected. The remarks of China's top diplomat in the Philippines against supporting Taiwan are not a cause for concern as the situation remain very normal and the welfare and interests of overseas Filipino workers are well protected according to a statement by from MECO. Okay, yan po. Meanwhile, we have a photo at the top of the front page of President Bongbong Marcos accompanying Czech Republic Prime Minister Peter ba ito? Weird na pangalan. Fiala, okay? Following a welcome ceremony in Malacanang, the visiting Czech Prime Minister cites connections rooted in history. Okay, yan po. Celebrating 50 years of diplomatic relationship. Meanwhile, the center spread of the Philippine Star features a photo, several photos, starting with Pamplona Mayor Janice Degamo, widow of slain Negros Oriental Governor Roel Degamo, taking her oath during the Senate investigation into the assassination yesterday. Also in attendance were former Governor Pride Henry Teves, brother of Congressman Arnulfo Teves, tagged as the Slay Mastermind, and the last photo is of DILG Secretary Benhar Abalos and Justice Secretary Crispin Remulla conferring with each other. Okay. So yan po yung tungkol sa investigation. Related to that, the Senate disallows virtual testimony. Okay. Let's bring out the header there. And reports indicate that Teves in South Korea, okay, the Senate Committee on Public Order yesterday rejected the virtual presence of Negros Oriental 3rd District Representative Arnulfo Teves Jr. to air his side on the murder of Negros Oriental Governor Roel Degamo, raising legal and jurisdictional issues. Okay. In short, hindi po pumayag ang mga members ng committee for Congressman Teves to participate virtually. Okay. Meanwhile, ito po yung pinag-uusapan natin yesterday regarding rice shortage or crisis we read in the news. Okay. The Department of Agriculture drops plan for NFA to import 330,000 metric tons of rice. If you recall, this suggestion was made before Holy Week, and then during the start after Holy Week, this week, the farmers group indicated or expressed that we are facing a potential rice crisis. Ngayon, biglang inatras naman ng NFA yung kanilang plano to import 330,000 metric tons of rice. So parang before there was confirmation of a possible crisis, they wanted to import. Now there is confirmation of a possible crisis, they don't want to import. So maybe they just want to create crisis after crisis. Okay, ayan na lang po. Yan na lang ang solution nila. Okay, now, photo at the bottom of the left part of the front page, we have a photo of SM, Shoemart no? Shoemart naman talaga yung SM Okay, so matanda na kung matanda si Beltran. SM's Hansi, Stephen Tan, and Ben Mateo joined the Autism Society of the Philippines as it staged the Angels Walk for Autism 2023 at the Mall of Asia last Sunday. More than 10,000 people came to support the event, which aims to promote acceptance, accommodation, and appreciation of people with autism. Ayan po. So, there you go. Also in photo, our celebrity couple Troy Montero and Aubrey Miles with ASPs Erlinda Uyco, Coe, and Lorenzo Sumulong III. Okay. Now, here, for those who believe there is no justice in the Philippines, for those who think that they can get away with crime and corruption, naku po, eto, former Bukidnon lawmaker, former congressman of Bukidnon, gets 187 years over pork scam. Hindi po siya binigyan ng 187 years. He was sentenced to 187 years in prison in connection with the alleged misuse of Priority Development Assistance Fund, aka PDAF or pork barrel, amounting to 36.9 million from 2007 to 2008. Ayan po, ha? Wala. 187 years. Baka 40 years laang patay na. Last but not the least, top NPA leader nabbed in Malaysia. Okay? An alleged leader of the Communist Party of the Philippines, New People's Army, was arrested in Langkawi, Malaysia, while he was en route to neighboring Thailand to meet up with fellow leaders of the organization. Okay. According to Captain Mark Anthony Tito, spokesman for the Army's 10th Infantry Division, Eric June Casilao, 43 years old, the alleged Secretary General of the NPA Southern Mindanao Regional Committee, was arrested last week by Malaysian authorities at the border of Malaysia and Thailand. Okay, yan po. So, that about covers the news on the front page of the Philippine Star. Please get a copy this morning for more articles, more news. And if not, you can also go online kasi yung iba talagang online sila. Bili na kayo para makakuha ko rin. Okay. Anyway, ito pong umagang to, medyo maluwag ang tornilyo ni Beltran. But anyway, for those of you who are wondering, who is Cito Beltran going to talk to this morning? Well, if you're a parent, okay, mother, father, you have children, especially those entering kindergarten, grade 1, etc., beginning pa lang, or those who are returning to school after the long COVID lockdown, etc., or you're a grandparent in the same situation, looking after your doing apostolic work, okay, you need to listen to the program today because we are going to speak to someone regarding an issue that is only recently being recognized and only partially being addressed. It is about children going back to school. Medyo hindi lang po ito back to school issue. This involves the mental state of those young children. We'll go for a quick break. When we return, we will talk to our guests here on Agenda. Okay, like I said before the break, if you have very young children who are about to enter school or who have been away from school because of the lockdowns, etc., have predominantly relied on internet, etc., or remote studies, listen in because our conversation today is very important and it's about the children. We will find out. Gabriel, please roll out the Betamax.
Dr. Jacqueline Navarro is the president of the Philippine Society for Developmental and Behavioral Pediatrics. Aside from this, she is the consultant director at the Medical City Center for Developmental Pediatrics. Navarro is also the assistant chair of the Philippine Pediatric Society Task Force on Mental Health for Children and Youth.
Good morning, Jackie. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Cito, and welcome to all those watching your show this morning.
Okay, thank you for joining us. And I believe it is a very important, very serious topic because apparently it was only recently that studies or observations have been shared by experts such as yourself about developmental delays, adjustment challenges, or problems encountered by new learners, first-time schoolers, or even those who were already in school but were not established. Kumbaga, they had enrolled in kindergarten, grade 1, but because of the lockdowns, na-disrupt, their process was disrupted. So now they have developmental delays directly attributed to the COVID lockdowns. Could you enlighten us about this subject matter, Jackie?
Yes, Ito, the problem really is now emerging, and we're seeing a lot of children with problems. And it's not a local thing, it's a global thing. All over the world, a lot of children are showing signs of developmental delay. So it's not just an anecdotal report from your friends, from your teachers, but it's really happening. So they saw in some studies that there was really a dip in the IQ of children or their cognitive performance, a dip of more than 10 points. And I think that's quite significant. But in the ground, functionally, you can see children who are having difficulty communicating, having difficulty socializing. They don't know what to do in certain situations. And they have problems with emotional regulation. So those are the major problems that teachers are encountering. And they're seeing it because we're doing now more face-to-face encounters in school. Remember that in November, the DepEd has commissioned all schools to go back to face-to-face. But not all schools adopted it in November, but most schools have adopted it in around January or February. So those are the things that we're seeing. But we're seeing a real crisis. And according to experts, the problems that have impacted our children will be there for many years to come.
Okay.
Even after our COVID pandemic has resolved 100%.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, just to put context and to put your minds at ease, okay? We're not sharing or talking about this topic simply because we picked a topic out of the air or may nabasa lang kami and ginawa na naming topic. Many times I do topic selection. My wife does topic selection because we have seen it, we have experienced it, or we are familiar with it. So please do not be resistant to the idea of checking, of fact-checking, checking, and observing. For instance, one of the things we learned 20, maybe 15, 18 years ago today was that there were very few experts in the field of developmental pediatrics and very few experts such as yourself, Jackie. That is the first thing we learned. Number two, many situations pop up at school. And in the case of this topic we are talking about today, what came to us was that parents would bring their children back to school or enroll their first-time learners in school. And then after the initial assessment done by the school expert or teachers, biglang sasabihan sila, ma'am, sir, may we suggest that you bring your children or your son or your daughter to her or his pediatrician for assessment. And parang, wow, blackout bigla ang parents. They don't know what the hell is the teacher talking about. We have normal kids. Why are you telling us to have our children assessed? Jackie, what are the teachers seeing? What are they observing that this has become such a common statement? Please have your child assessed by a pediatrician.
That's a very common scenario now, more than ever. Although we all know already that the prevalence of children with developmental problems is increasing every year, but more so with the pandemic. So what the teachers are seeing now with the children coming back to schools are, number one, they have difficulty with their emotional regulation. So they have difficulty, meaning they cannot control their emotions. So they have a lot of breakout in their emotions, such as tantrums or non-compliance, not being able to follow the teachers. And then maybe some parents have difficulty comparing because they don't have siblings at home. And then when they bring the children to school, their child to school, the teachers are now seeing that they're not at par with the normal development. So the children are delayed with their language skills. So, but more so, I think with the behavior, they're having difficulty following the routine. They're having difficulty following the teachers. They have difficulty interacting with other children. So those are the problems that the teachers are observing.
They're disruptive, in the class. Parang ako, nung bata ako, lagi akong pinapupunta sa playground. Akala ko naman I was being rewarded, I was being punished pala. Anyway, they're disruptive in the class. They're usually screaming, shouting. They just want to play. They're running around. They're not. They're ignoring the teacher, or they're crying, or nagdadabog.
The other side of the spectrum can also be true. They're withdrawn. They cannot socialize. They cannot participate. So that's also on the other end of the spectrum. So we have externalizing children exhibiting externalizing behavior, while the others are withdrawn.
Yung nakawala sa koral, nagwawala because first time they were able to get out of the confined space, but the other ones are like, parang lab technician, nakatingin na lang sa microscope.
Or not really moving, not talking, not participating, really not enjoying the school experience. So maybe because they're intimidated, overwhelmed, they don't know what to do in that situation. So that's both spectrum of the behavior are seen by the teachers in the classroom. But I think the prevalence is more now after coming out from the pandemic. We already know that there's a problem, and that's about, let's say, a class of about 20, about 2 or 3 children will probably have issues coming into preschool. But now we have a lot of children will have problems coming into preschool, not just the usual 5%, no?
Okay, now, so the teacher will basically say, I think there's a problem here, go to a pediatrician or to a developmental pediatrician. Now, are there enough doctors like yourself? Kasi, hello, when we thought our child had a problem, that was a nightmare finding one or getting an appointment with one.
Correct. 20 years ago, actually, the society was just founded in 2000, the year 2000.
The
And
year
there were
my daughter was born.
yes, and there were about maybe about more than there were 15 who has founded the society after 23 years. However, we are not distributed equally in the different regions of the Philippines, a lot of which are concentrated in the Metro Manila area. And we have a few pediatric specialists in the north. We have also in the Visayas and Mindanao region. So really the proportion of developmental pediatricians practicing more in the Metro Manila area.
Oh, okay. This developmental delay, okay. How do you translate it? Because okay, there are symptoms in the behavior, but ultimately, what happens in the performance? Because
Yes.
with our daughter, thank God, it wasn't a problem. It was just that the first school we enrolled her in emphasized on creativity, arts, etc. So yung kanyang reading was affected. Pero yung comprehension niya mataas. That is why it was a puzzle. And then having two medyo introverted parents, I'm functionally an introvert, a functioning introvert. But okay, how does it translate to performance?
Cito, if it's okay, I'd like to just put out some basic principles on
Yeah,
development.
please.
So first, when we talk about development, there are different domains of development, such as motor skills. We have your gross motor, that's the movement of your large muscles, fine motor, which is the movement of your hands and fingers. Then we have your language skills, your expression, which is what you say, what the child says, how many words in sentences, and the clarity of speech. Then we have your receptive language, which is what the child understands, instructions, questions. Then we have your socio-emotional skills. That's the ability of the child to interact with other people and regulate his emotions, appropriately. Then we have your self-help skills. So self-help skills are the things that the child can do for himself, such as in eating, dressing, grooming. And lastly, you have your cognitive skills, which is your intellectual development. I just want to explain that all these domains of development interact with one another and they're important. All of them are important. They impact in such a way. Let's say if you have delays in language, you have difficulty socializing because you cannot communicate well. Or if you have difficulty with your fine motor, you have difficulty with your self-help in dressing, in grooming. So also there's the behavior. Behavior is your response to your environment. So for example, in your case, if the child has difficulty in and not exposed to certain things, then you will see delays. But the second principle that I want to emphasize, what are the drivers of good development? First, of course, is your genetics. Second is your nutrition. But third and most important is your stimulation, the amount of stimulation that you're receiving. And in the first 5 years of life, that is the most important because that's where the brain is most plastic and amenable to different experiences.
Especially if they are an only child.
Correct. Yes. So if the parents are unaware of what experiences a child should have during those early years, then the child will be deprived of these experiences. And when they come to school, that's when they realize, oops, I missed out on providing this opportunity for my child. Let's take an example in the pandemic. When everybody was online, of course, we had no choice, but it wasn't a very good medium for young kids to learn. Online was really a bad thing for the younger kids. And because it was online, a lot of the schools and the teachers did not require children to write or draw. So by the time they come back to school, that is one of the things that was problematic drawing
Eh,
and writing.
yeah, not only drawing and writing per se, but going to the board or physically showing something you
Correct.
did. So yung performance mo, hindi nakikita, even for adults. I mean, I've handled classes at the DAP, and it's mandatory. You are going to stand in front
Correct.
and deliver. So for children, because we were online, hindi nila nagawa yun.
A lot of experiences deprived for them, no? Really, that experience of being in a classroom, having a routine, sitting down, listening to teacher, doing your tabletop activities, playing with the kids cooperatively in the playground. So a lot of those things have been deprived. And 2 to 3 years is no joke, really. When you lose that 2 to 3 years, you really have to compensate now when the children are back to really teach them the skills beforehand, no?
Yeah,
And it
but
starts at home.
Jackie, I'm just curious, okay? Yeah, because you just said it. You said the magic word. It starts at home. Unfortunately, Filipinos are the type, well, for working parents, okay, they need to dress up their child, feed the child so they can all leave on time. And parang, hey, it works, but hello, works for you, but not for the child because the child does not learn how to feed himself or
Correct.
herself, how to dress him or herself. So it starts at home. What are the bad things that parents do? I'm sorry, call a spade because I know of one child, Jackie. I know this, ladies and gentlemen. I've personally witnessed this. In fact, my wife pointed out, anak ng bilyonaryo. He wasn't talking and he was already a big kid, okay? And I was saying, may diferensya ba yung bata? And it turns out, he didn't have to open his mouth because his yaya was intuitive. Parang, pakainin ko na. Nakasimangot, bigyan ko na ng laruan, etc. So the child never needed to say or do anything because everything was presented to him.
Yeah, actually, that's one basic principle of promoting development is providing the opportunity for the child to develop that skill. Of course, at a young age, they have limited skill. So first, you have to have guides. What are the developmentally appropriate activities? And there's a lot of that. You can get that in the internet for, let's say, a 2-year-old. And then once you see the skill of the child, the next thing is to challenge them a little above what they already know so that they will push towards that and learn more skills. And you build on that. That's the scaffolding that you're saying, that the skills should be built. So for that situation that you said, there were no opportunities given to this child to exhibit his skill, to develop his skill, to practice his skill. So sometimes at a certain age, parents have to also step back, just provide the opportunity. So like in the morning, wake up earlier so that you can allow your child to dress up, choose what to wear, button up, put on their shoes and socks, and go. A lot of parents, common po yan, what you said kanina na since nagmamadali, papakainin na lang. Di ba? 7 years old na, sinusubuan pa.
Papakainin pa sa kotse kung minsan.
Yeah, that's true kasi antok pa yung bata, di ba? So, really, that's one. Providing the appropriate opportunities for children to develop their skills. And that's what parents should know. However, you have to caution the parents not to give too much that's not appropriate for the child. Like, for example, teaching reading to an infant. No, that's not important. Teaching the letters, colors, numbers to an infant, that's not important. What's important for an infant is learning vocabulary, learning words, being able to communicate his needs. No, so I would, although they're very, I guess, motivated to have their children learn to read, but that's not needed for the time.
I know.
2-year-old, yeah.
Yeah, in fact, is it true, Jackie? Because my wife pointed this out to me. She was making stuff or drawings or art stuff for our baby, our toddler at that time, and they were black and white. And I said, "Hello, put in color." And she said, they don't see color at that age. Let them,
Uh,
understand the child and say, okay, you're the mother. I don't know what I'm talking about.
yeah. So
Yung
for an infant,
stimulus.
yeah, the infant will see color. At the before 6 months, it's a little blurry.
Mhm.
That's why you use a lot of colorful materials to entice them. So it's good to present colors already at a young
After
age
six
in book.
months.
Actually, even at the infancy, you're allowed to show colorful things like your
Mhm.
mobile, the
Yeah.
hangings on the crib, the colorful books and pictures, and of course, what they like, infants like, is the face, the human face. So you
Mm.
can be very close to your infant, showing all your emotions, no, and that is what happened also with the pandemic, with the mask. A lot of children have difficulty with speaking because they cannot see the movement of the mouth. So they actually
Oh, wow.
already attributed the delays in language with the masking. So even if they're in school and they're getting all this stimulation, the child doesn't see the teacher's mouth moving. So only the eyes. So that's also another skill set that children need to develop. So at home, it's good to really look at you without the mask and really talk to the child face to face. No.
Okay, now all of these tablets, these phones, because everybody shifted to tablets and phones because of the pandemic, but all the experts before the pandemic were saying take those things away from your children because they are going to destroy their development. What's the rule on that now?
Um, yes, thank you for bringing that up. I was going to bring that up soon. No. So I said masking was one negative stimulus. The second negative stimulus is screen time, all forms, um, digital screens on the phone, tablets, your television, your laptop, your computers. So the verdict is still the same. And what we're seeing now is really the negative impact of screen time. Because the children have been exposed, they had to. And because of online schooling, a lot of children discovered the others, the peripherals, the apps, the internet, the web resources. So they're not listening to school. So the what we're really proposing and advocating is for parents to still regulate screen time. So if that's outside of the school time, if they still have online. So may I just say the recommendation, Cito?
Go ahead.
So for less than 2 years old, two and below, absolutely zero. So if your children are exposed now, I would suggest to go cold turkey, like just taking it out altogether, but be sure to replace it with developmentally appropriate activities. I want to explain why. Because in the first 2 years of life, your brain is not wired to learn from that very fast-paced digital medium. Why? Because when you have a digital screen in front of you, unlike a book, a math book, a book that you just flip pages, each image on the digital screen are very many light emissions. No, that's technically there are a lot of light emissions, and those are
Hmm.
actually registered as inputs or stimulus to the brain. And the infant's brain, the toddler's brain, is not wired that way. So what we're seeing now, if children are exposed at an early age, if they are exposed to long hours of screen time, especially with poor quality programming, they have very poor attention span. And you can see this about when children, you talk to them, they're not listening to you. It's like they don't hear you
Mhm.
or you're not there. Second, we see a lot of delays in language and emotional regulation. So we're seeing a lot of those effects. So it's really more beneficial for children 2 and below not to be exposed to screens. For 3 to 5 years old, 2 to 5 years old, children can be exposed to high quality programming less than 2 hours per day, but always with supervision. Tawag nila po co-viewing. So meaning a parent is there to process what the child is seeing, viewing, listening to, and participating in what the program is trying to do. Like, for example, the program is trying to be interactive with your child, then you sort of support that, and not put them in front of the screen and just leave them there. And that's a very passive experience. Apps are different because when you're used to an app, diba, there's a lot of gamified programs where you get points and everything. So the children get used to that very fast pace of a program. And because of that, their attention span also decreases. So you really have to regulate. After 5, school age, the same, also about 2 hours, always with co-viewing. But for adolescents, it's a different story. And what I like about the recommendation of the American Psychological Association is, how do you know if it's already excessive for adolescents? Number one is the very first rule. There's really no time, but if the child is not anymore interacting with family, screen time is interfering with the main occupation of the child, which is to study, to make friends, to be with friends, and that quality family time, or maybe also affecting his health, then it's excessive already, and it's time to decrease your screen usage. But adolescents are very resistant. They don't like to be controlled. So maybe a strategy is parang hindi halata, but you're actually taking them out of their rooms, bringing them out, going out.
Simple lang yan, Jackie. Patayin mo yung Wi-Fi o i-block mo sila sa Wi-Fi. Okay, anyway, we'll go for a quick break. When we come back, I'd like to shift gears because you've given tips to the parents, and at the end of the day, the parents need to bring their child to a developmental pediatrician or maybe even online, etc., consult with you guys. But when we come back, let's talk about the teachers. Because apparently it is the teacher who is stuck with the problem or who is confronted with the problem. And some don't even realize it's not them, it's the child. We'll go for a quick break. We'll be right back here on Agenda. Welcome back to the program Agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran. Joining us this morning is Dr. Jacqueline Navarro. She is the president of the Philippine Society for Developmental and Behavioral Pediatrics, and we are discussing discoveries, observations in schools, in classrooms regarding developmental delay among children because of COVID lockdowns. It's only now that the problem is being realized or given due notice, because these studies and observations take time to pile up, be compiled, analyzed, and distributed for discussion. So we are discussing it here on Agenda. Doc Jackie, let's continue. And before the break, I said we've been talking about the parents, about the children, but it is often the teacher who first notices the problem. Now, in general, although you're not with CHED, etc., has there been observation or information how well informed are teachers in observing and determining developmental problems or delays in children?
I would say credit to the teachers before the start of the face-to-face classes. They had a lot of training already in expecting these problems coming in the school. No, so I believe that a lot of teachers are noticing it, but maybe they're able to notice the more obvious, but not the very obvious. Like, for example, a reading problem or a difficulty coping in class until after a certain grading period. But I think most of them are quite equipped, and they'll be the one to inform the parents. But I just want to ask this permission to tell what the teachers should be doing. No, so when the children come to school, definitely if they have been coming back from zero school, no, like coming this year, they're the pandemic babies, no. When they come into school, give them a bit of time to adjust. So let's say about a month. So when you document a lot of your observations, do not bring it up at the first day of school and tell the parents, I think your child has a problem. I think that's unfair, no. So they have to have a period of observation. So about a month. If after a month they're seeing the difficulty coping in the classroom, having difficulty interacting and having difficulty learning, then they can bring in the co-teachers or the guidance counselor to discuss if this is really an issue, and then bring in the parents to discuss with them. You can ask the parents, is this the same observation you have at home? If it's the same, then you confirmed your issue, and then you plan together to move forward to have referrals done.
Okay, so you have to pace it. Don't just call the parents and say we have a problem, because that's not going to be good. But consulting or a cooperation is very useful. Now, what's the worst case scenario? Or what is the biggest problem seen in the classrooms now? Is it just, okay, disruption? Kasi sabi mo, there's this thing about reading disability, there is the attention deficit, etc. In terms of developmental delays, what's the worst case scenario?
Well, the worst case scenario is the child is not able to cope in that school environment and would have to find alternative ways of learning. That's the worst scenario. But I just have to warn the group, there's also a possibility that a lot of children are not used to that setup or have not been stimulated properly, may not have really a developmental condition, but because of the lockdown and the deprivation of experiences are experiencing this. But a lot of children that we see after a period of about 1 to 2 months are able to adjust, and which is good, and that's a good thing. But after a period of about a month, when the teacher has provided all the accommodations and support, but still the child has difficulty coping, then that's it. That is a call for a meeting with the parents to discuss what to do. But I know that a lot of schools also start something already by providing the support that the child needs inside the classroom.
Okay. I'm just worried because of this phenomenon that we might end up like being in the US, where children are being given medication in schools. You're the pediatrician here. What's your position regarding medication in support of child behavior, etc.?
Yeah, definitely if a child has a diagnosis of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and the child is poorly functioning in the classroom, meaning is not able to cope with the school's demands, a trial of medication is important, but medication alone should not be the answer. There should be accommodations provided in the classroom, behavior management strategies, and it should also happen in the home. So home and school should have consistent behavior management strategies
In
and
other words,
educational support.
yeah, in other words, deal with the environment first, deal with the behavior, and medication should be last.
Technically, yes, but our position really is if the child really needs it, you can do it
Oh
all
yeah,
together.
the exemption that would be more of an exemption than the norm.
So, well, studies have shown that if you combine it, it's more effective. But yes, I agree. If the environment is not there to support, fix that first. Fix
Okay.
the if the parents are disorganized themselves, maybe undiagnosed with a condition, that also wreaks havoc for the child. So I would say look at your parenting style, your discipline style, set in some routines, help your child organize, and you yourself organize yourself. That will really help a lot. Studies have shown that if parent support is 100%, the child improves very significantly.
Okay. Well, Dr. Jacqueline Navarro, thank you very much for joining us this morning, for your very important inputs. And I think the most important thing we've accomplished this morning is bring attention to the fact that there is a situation that came out because of COVID lockdowns. The problem is not the children, it is what they came out of, and we need to fix that problem, not the children. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Jackie.
Thank you very much, and thank you for this opportunity to promote our advocacy. Thank you.
Okay, God bless you and have a great day. Okay, that's Dr. Jacqueline Navarro, President, Philippine Society for Developmental Behavioral Pediatrics. Ulitin ko lang po, and deal with the environment. If you're a parent, deal with yourself first. Challenge yourself first before you judge or decide the problem is the child. Because often, you are the problem and not the child, or the environment is the problem. And if you can't figure it out, go ask for help from your pediatrician. Okay, let's go to our closing blessing for the week. It comes from Corey Ten Boom, and she said, never be afraid to trust an unknown future to a known God. I'm leaving this message as a blessing to you. So, do not be afraid. Trust God and always pray. Thank you for joining us today. Bless your children. Pray over your children every day when they go to school, when they wake up, when they come home. I'm Cito Beltran thanking you. Please keep it here on One News.